WeatherScope. Powerful winds batter the Great Lakes region, bringing down trees and power lines and dropping wind chills. We'll have the latest. And the rising water continues in the upper Midwest, where the flooding is just beginning in some areas. Those stories plus in-depth forecast and analysis on this edition of WeatherScope.
It's been a wind-blown Monday across much of the Great Lakes region. Hi, I'm Christina Abernathy. Thanks for joining us.
And I'm Mike Seidel. Thanks for watching. The Dakotas and Minnesota, you struggle with floodwaters following the wintry weather this past weekend. But first, we check in on the effects of the wind in the upper Midwest today. Strong winds blew down trees and brought down power lines in the Grand Rapids, Michigan area overnight. Thousands of people were without power, and authorities say some areas won't have electricity until midweek. On nearby Lake Michigan, the wind sent waves crashing along the shoreline, raising concerns there about beach erosion. Well, it may have looked like a nice day for baseball in Milwaukee, but don't be deceived. The wind was whipping the flags at County Stadium, and the fans were bundled up against a wind chill in the teens. There were sustained winds between 20 and 30 miles an hour most of the day, although the sun was out, so at least there was some warming from that high April sun angle. Let's talk about the wind, its effects on the temperatures, then we'll discuss how this cold front has affected you in Florida today and how the return flow will have a real impact on you in Texas in the next few days. First, though, the winds, and we still have a lot of wind gusting to 35 to 40 miles an hour around the lakes this evening. Green Bay, you've had a gust this past hour to about 40 miles an hour. And it's causing two things. One, it's advecting or transporting colder air off to the east, so your 72 in Boston will be a far cry, a far memory tomorrow as you get back to some more typical April weather in the Boston, New York City area. And besides transporting the cold air in, that wind is keeping the wind chill down where it's already cold. But look what it's done to the temperature so far. It's dropped at 25 to 30 degrees across the Tennessee Valley and western New England. In Detroit, where it was in the mid-70s yesterday, a beautiful April Sunday. 26 degrees colder, 32 degrees colder in Buffalo, but it's 23 degrees warmer in Boston. The front is through the area, and that cold air will be sweeping in on a west to northwesterly wind later on this evening. There's the old blue line, the old front racing down towards Florida. The cool high settling in, a very comfortable night over the southeast tonight, although there could be a little bit of frost in the Carolinas. And with the cold air moving south, it certainly cuts down on that humidity and the instability in the atmosphere. However, along this front, as it pressed into the warm tropical air this afternoon, those of you around Tampa got hit pretty hard with rain around lunchtime and shortly thereafter. An inch-and-a-half of rain at the Tampa Bay airport. It's all clear now in Hillsborough, Pinellas County, up around Clearwater. But look at the rain showers around Lake Okeechobee over towards Vero Beach and Jupiter Inlet. These are sagging south with the front, and you can see not a whole lot of bright colors, so we're not expecting any severe weather this evening, but the front will continue moving south, and that will increase your chances of showers and decrease the amount of sunshine for those of you going out to the beaches tomorrow in Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties. The same goes over on the west coast around Fort Myers, Naples, and Marco. Not an all-day sunny day tomorrow with that front in the area. Now let's discuss what's going to be happening in the interim. As the high moves over to the north, it will start to scoop up Gulf of Mexico moisture. So those of you in Dallas, San Antonio, and Houston, look out. You've had too much rain already this winter and early spring. More is on the way. Not so much in the short term, but in the long term, as we'll show you coming up in the weekend outlook. The rain comes in. We could have some strong storms later on tonight and Tuesday, but the real effects of the rain will hit midweek and the latter part of the week. Meanwhile, we want to show you that moisture. Here it comes, gathering strength, some tropical moisture in Mexico now spilling in across the Rio Grande. So watch out in this area. We'll keep you posted, certainly, with the watches and radars, and keep checking back with your National Weather Service radars Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Now, let's check in on the cold weather and the snow in the upper Midwest. Here's Christina.
What about our forecast, Mike?
Okay, let's get into it on Tuesday morning, and another chunk of pretty cold air. In fact, we didn't see this in February and March, and now you're seeing it again in the Dakotas. At least you don't have to deal with a lot more snow, but it is going to be brutally cold, single numbers for lows, and wind chills 20 to 25 below zero. We talked about a few minutes ago the high moving over and the return flow, the western flow around the high as winds blow, as we all know, or at least we know now. They blow clockwise around high pressure north of the equator here in the northern hemisphere. So that's pushing up moisture into the southern plains. And this continued advection or transport of moisture will be around for the next several days. So watch out in those flood-prone areas of Texas and Oklahoma in the next 3 or 4 days. East Coast weather decidedly cooler, maybe a little bit of lake effect off Erie and Ontario, no big deal there as far as highway problems. And in Boston and New York, it turns dramatically colder, some 20 to 25 degrees colder tomorrow afternoon. In Florida, a gorgeous day across the Panhandle beaches, Destin, Fort Walton Beach, but if you're in South Florida from Lake Okeechobee to the Florida Keys, you run the risk of a shower and thunderstorm and more clouds. And watch out for the storms tomorrow afternoon around Dallas, Fort Worth, all the way to Houston. In the west, very quiet, a few rain showers and snow showers in the northwest through Tuesday afternoon, and then we'll just see the winds turning upslope, and as the winds rise into the Front Range and the Rockies, snows will be breaking out there Tuesday afternoon with a few flakes in New England. Take a look at the temperatures overnight tonight. Cold enough certainly for snow in the Plain States, sub-zero cold in April. Give us all a break. How about tomorrow? Not much better. Those of you in Chicago, not even cracking 40, and it will stay cold for the rest of the week. And as we mentioned, Christina, the big threat later on this week will be flooding in the southern plains and in the upper Midwest on those rivers.
Okay, we'll keep you updated on those situations. Stay tuned for your local forecast coming up next.
This is your local forecast, weather information you can plan on, because we show it on the 8s of every hour. Local on the 8s on the Weather Channel. The Weather Channel. No place on earth has better weather.
Well, it was quite a weekend in the upper Midwest with a blizzard, high winds and wind chills running 30 to 40 below zero. That is out of the way. The cold air sticks around, and by Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, a new storm comes out of the Rockies into the plains and causes what we think will be more problems, especially in Texas, where you've had too much rain already in 97. Let's set the stage with a 5-day with your forecast with a jet stream for Wednesday and Saturday. And you can see the big dip in the southwest indicating a trough. And this trough combined with moisture flowing out of the Gulf of Mexico will mean showers, thunderstorms, and for those of you in the Front Range like Denver, get the snow shovels out. Back east, we still have that wind flow out of central Canada, and that's going to keep it chilly into the tail end of the week. No big changes on Saturday. That little ripple migrates east towards the lower Mississippi Valley. And for those of you in New Orleans, up towards Memphis and Chicago, more rain in your forecast and still good skiing weather because of that stream of cold air coming out of Canada. Big ridge in western Canada and Alaska. Yesterday in Fairbanks, temperatures cracked 60 degrees, which is more than we can say for those of you in the Twin Cities. Now, as we get into Tuesday, here's the leading edge of the colder air. What's going to be happening during the day is the cold high will ridge down, the winds will come around the backside, the underbelly of the high, and as they run into the higher elevations across the plains of Wyoming and Montana, we'll get the orographic lifting, the upslope effect. That will mean clouds and snow breaking out, and that will be a continued chance into the middle of the week. Already we're seeing the flow coming out of the Gulf, the cool high building into the Ohio Valley, and that picks up the moisture and transports it north. So those of you in Dallas and Houston and San Antonio get set for several days, if not more, of rainfall, and the ground, as I mentioned, is already sopping wet from recent rains this year, and more rain will likely kick in more flooding problems. Back east, noticeably cooler, the wind blowing offshore and advecting or transporting in colder air, so your 70-plus reading in New York and Boston today will certainly be a memory. It's only going to be about 50 or so in those cities tomorrow afternoon. Those of you in western New England may see a little bit of snow, and still breezy and chilly for Chicago and Minneapolis. No big warm-up here in the immediate future. And look at the dark green on the map, indicating showers and storms. We could have some watches out, certainly some warnings, maybe even some flash flood warnings. And, of course, we'll get you those from the local Weather Service offices and the watches from the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma. There's that snow continuing to break out as the winds upslope. A little bit of rain and snow in the Pacific Northwest, snow in the Cascades. Dry weather, though, for most of you in California, San Francisco, L.A., and into the deserts of the Southwest. But we're not seeing any excessive heat. It could be a lot warmer than it's going to be tomorrow in Palm Springs, where temperatures up in the low 80s. Tuesday afternoon, the cold air really sags in. This is more like a wintertime situation with a big high building in. The pressure with this high is higher than we've seen during February and March in most cases. So a very strong high pushing this next front south. It starts to fall apart across the Tennessee Valley, but it reinforces the cold air now moving into New England, and with that reinforcing shot, there may be a few snowflakes. Those of you in Florida, should be another glorious day on the beaches around Panama City and Destin and Fort Walton Beach. Today it was nice, about 80 degrees, low humidity, and plenty of sunshine. But in South Florida, with that front hanging up, continued chance of a shower, thunderstorm, Miami through the Florida Keys, and a fair amount of clouds there. Look at the rain developing in Texas. Here's our storm, and it's going to be a slow mover. You're going to be dealing with rains in Texas and Oklahoma for at least 2 or 3 days. The snows capping the Rockies and Plains, and here comes our next storm, picking up the wind through the East Bay Hills in San Francisco. Rainfall, at least at the beginning, will be heaviest down in the lower Texas Gulf Coast around South Padre, if you're spring breaking it there, Brownsville up towards San Antonio, and then up towards the Red River. East Coast, very dry, except for Florida, so some good travel weather, except it will be a bit bumpy taking off and landing at LaGuardia and Logan tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon. Snowfall, at least at this point, on the light side, 1 to 3 inches, a little bit off Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, but plenty of cold air and some pretty nippy wind chills. Look at these morning low temperatures on Tuesday. Signal numbers below 0, wind chills 20 to 25 below 0. Highs only in the teens. This is some 30 degrees below average. Still pretty decent in Florida, even behind the front. Not quite as warm along the Gulf coastal states from Atlanta back to Dallas. And then with the clouds and rain here, it will stay kind of chilly, as without sunshine this time of the year, you're not going to get very warm, even during January. But this time of year, especially as the days are getting longer and the sun angle is getting higher. There are your highs as we get into Friday and into Saturday. Notice the cold air continuing in the plains and west. A little bit of warm air tries to move up ahead of the storm, maybe cracking 50 again in Boston by the weekend. Here's the rain I was talking about in the southern plains, showers and storms, snow in the front range. Get the shovels out now in Denver and the scrapers. You're going to need them for a couple of days. The rain will be very slow to move off to the east and northeast, so several days of rain on saturated ground will run the risk of some flooding there. There's your Friday and Saturday map. Now eventually by the weekend, some of this rain will move into the southeast. Stays dry in New York and the west too, in pretty good shape. Next on WeatherScope, we'll show you more of the radars in Florida where the storms continue this evening.